next page.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Batman, and we're going to be doing a reaction video to your boy NCHammer23. So basically what the video, the title is, what if Fugaku became the fourth Hokage? And so what's really interesting is, when it comes to the fourth Fugaku, I feel like he's a very, very underrated character. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about a character that literally fucking has, like, the same reputation as the fourth Hokage, or Minato, okay? Was valued as a worthy candidate to be the fourth Hokage, rivaling Minato. Same thing, run on sight, order, you name it, all that. The nations feared him, you name it. His nickname was the Wicked Eye. Had the Mangekyo Sharingan. Very powerful opponent, okay? And he was no joke. And kind of similar to like the one video I had for Sakumo Hatake of Naruto Shinobi Legends, you know what I mean? Like a kind of a series I was going to do for Naruto. That was eventually going to be the next video I was going to do, and it was going to be covering Fugaku, basically of how powerful he was, and overall why I feel like Kishimoto kind of had some wasted potential on him, because I feel like we should have got some more background story. We should have got maybe some more, war story time with the character, and to see why he was so feared. Kind of the same shit that we got with Minato. We should have kind of got that with Fugaku as well, you know what I mean? Because he had the statements and the hype and everything, the same exact thing. We just never got to see it, but we got to see it with Minato, So I feel like we should have probably got to be able to see that as well. That was kind of some wasted potential, and it would have been really, really fucking cool. We should have got to see what his Mangekyo Sharingan abilities were. That would have been really cool to kind of see, his Susanoo. Overall, that would have been really, really cool to go into. And eventually I would do a video of that on my own and, for future tense videos. Not happening anytime soon because I'm still in the works of other videos. But, overall, it would have been really cool to kind of, go into topic. But this video really appealed to me because, if you look at the title, it's basically saying, what if, he became the fourth Hokage. So I'm interested to see his angle, to see his perception of it, to kind of see where he's at, what he's kind of talking about. If you guys don't know who he is, his name is NCHammer23. Definitely subscribe to him if you are a Naruto fan. He will not disappoint. Basically explains a lot of good lore videos. Doesn't really do versus battles or things like that, but, does a lot of really good job of, very interesting topics or things, a lot of people don't really think about, or lore, and so on and so forth. So, really good channel. Really cool to kind of switch it up instead of just talking about or reacting to versus battles or things like that. And here we are. And we're going to go into the video. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get it.
Informational content, or theories sometimes. But usually, even our theories are largely based in fact. I think any good theory should be largely based in fact. Recently, we actually did a video, the first of its kind on this page, which was a what if, and that what if was, what if Rock Lee gained the favor of Lord Jashin and got immortality? Now, people really enjoyed this video and they liked my logical approach to explaining the story. So that's kind of a green light to me, at least, to do more what if videos. And I would say today's what if is arguably one of the biggest what ifs that you could do with Naruto. I mean, this one event arguably rewrites the entirety of Naruto. And what's funny about that is it's something that seems relatively minor. But before we get into Nick trying to rewrite the entirety of Naruto, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. There's tons of what ifs that get thrown around by the fan base all of the time. What if Obito was never crushed by the rock? What if Minato never died? What if Itachi chose not to slaughter his whole clan? There's a lot of branching paths that could have been taken that just simply weren't in Naruto. But there's an event to me, technically an event we never truly see, that has a huge implication on the story of Naruto. I put a headband on. I don't like the way my forehead looks right now. This event is the election of the fourth.
I'm the same way. I can't stand my fucking big ass forehead, bro. Call me Sakura 3.0, bro.
Hokage. See, we all know that the fourth Hokage was Minato, right? He served for like 2 or 3 years.
He forgets who the king of this household is. It's me!
But what if I told you that Minato being elected as the fourth Hokage was one of the single most terrible things to ever happen to Konoha? Now, it's by far and away not Minato's fault he was elected the fourth Hokage, and he was actually an incredible choice to be the fourth Hokage. I would venture to say that he was even possibly the correct choice to be the fourth Hokage. But his election started a domino effect of very negative events.
True. And one thing I will say, though, is, I don't know, my whole thing when it comes to the Village of the Hidden Leaf, it pisses me off, bro, because they never, ever, ever gave an Uchiha the Hokage title. Ever. Tachi deserved it. Didn't give it to him. Fucking Fugaku definitely deserved it. Didn't give it to him. What the fuck, bro? You know what I mean? Make an Uchiha and Hokage for a change. It's kind of fucked. It's clearly discrimination, and you guys don't still, you name it. it's kind of messed up, you know. But regardless, I won't really get into that. But you know, it's interesting. It really is.
What if deals with the what if the other person who was up
Oh,
to
and
run
Madara too. You know, he should have been the first fucking Hokage, to be honest.
for the fourth Hokage ship was elected. Yes, the what if we're talking today is, what if Fugaku Uchiha was elected the fourth Hokage? Before we get to talking about this what if, we should talk about the precursor to the election of the fourth Hokage. Hiruzen obviously was the third Hokage, and he was the Hokage for both the second and third Great Shinobi World Wars. And while Hiruzen emotionally stood fast during the second Great Shinobi World War and willed his country into a victory, the third Shinobi World War was a bit different for him. The third Shinobi World War was the bloodiest conflict in ninja history, and it went on for a very long time. So long, in fact, that eventually Hiruzen just wanted it to be over. So Hiruzen wanted to go to the other villages to talk peace. But that's not what Danzo and large parts of the villages wanted, because effectively Konoha was winning. So a lot of war-hungry Konohanians, led by Danzo, basically insisted that Hiruzen not give up the war. Essentially, they stated, with how much we've lost in terms of people and comrades and all of this, we should keep pressing the offensive. So Hiruzen stepped down as third Hokage in order to take on the burden of all those lost souls onto himself. Essentially, he wanted to appease everybody and give them a common enemy in himself, so Konoha could leave the war. I'm telling you, man, OG Hiruzen was a really good guy. Shippuden, I don't know what happened. Kishimoto just decided he didn't like Hiruzen anymore. And then obviously after Hiruzen steps down, they need to fill his position. At the current time, there was 3 people, maybe 4, that could be considered for this role. The first was Jiraiya. Jiraiya got asked to be the Hokage 3 to 4 separate times. I don't remember the exact answer. And every single time he said no. So Jiraiya wasn't an option. The next up after Jiraiya was Minato, obviously. Minato was single-handedly responsible for beating back the Hidden Stone village. Essentially, after the Hidden Stone and the Hidden Leaf decided they didn't want to fight anymore, Inoki was like, let's give it one last shot, and sent 1,000 shinobi, all of which Minato killed by himself.
Yep.
So he was a third Great Shinobi World's War hero. The third option was Orochimaru. This is actually who Hiruzen wanted to be Hokage, as Hiruzen raised Orochimaru. But he didn't choose Orochimaru on account of the fact that he saw Orochimaru going down a very dark path. And the fourth option, and the option we're going to be exploring today, is Fugaku Uchiha. Fugaku Uchiha, for those of you who aren't caught up on their Uchiha family trees, was Itachi and Sasuke's father. You see, Fugaku was the current head of the Uchiha family, arguably the strongest family in Konoha at the time. And he, like Minato, was also a hero of the Third Great Shinobi World War, a war where he actually gained the nickname Wicked Eye Fugaku. You see, at least in anime canon, Fugaku has a Mangekyo Sharingan. We never saw it in the manga, but we saw it in the anime. He tells Itachi he got it when he saw one of his friends die on the battlefield. So Fugaku is incredibly powerful. Is he solo 1,000 shinobi sent from the Hidden Stone powerful? We don't necessarily know. Today is not about power scaling Fugaku Uchiha, it's about wondering what the political implications would have been should he have been elected as the fourth Hokage. So now
I'm gonna be real with you. We all know that if you have Mangekyo Sharingan, you can do Susanoo. So like, the guy can do Susanoo, you know, has crazy Genjutsu. We know that for sure. Was even telling Itachi he could control the Nine Tails if he wanted to, the full power. You know, so like all this other shit. So we know that, you know, and what the real question really begs to differ, do you think he could have been able to do perfect Susanoo? You know what I mean? And I don't feel like it's too far stretched for either Itachi to ever have been able to have the capability of doing perfect Susanoo or even Fugaku. And the reason why is because, like, if Kakashi was able to do that shit, why wouldn't Fugaku and, you know, and any other Uchiha that are actually an Uchiha be able to do it? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be really weird if they couldn't, you know? And then not only that, like, Kishimoto even drew and created, like, a perfect Susanoo for Shishui, for Itachi, for fucking, you know, then obviously you have, you know, Sasuke's and, you know, all that, which we've seen. But, you know, like, Kishimoto has drawn perfect Susanoos for other characters that we didn't see in the anime and the manga, you know? So it's like, it's not too far stretch. I wouldn't like act like it would be completely impossible or anything to really comprehend or think that is a thing. But like, if you had a perfect Susanoo, bro, that's a big deal. That puts you in a whole other level of fucking power. You know what I mean? Like a crazy level of power. You know what I mean? Now, I would probably go as far to think he more likely just only had like the second last stage of Susanoo, which is just full armor and everything, you know, whatever that was. But, you know, as for him to have the PS, we won't ever know. Unfortunately, he either did or he didn't. But that's just something to put into consideration. You know what I mean? And that would be pretty fucking crazy.
The premise is set, let's get into the what if territory. Fortunately, actually,
And I wonder what color it would be. Like, what would it even be?
in terms of events in Naruto, this is a rather late one, which means a lot of things would be somewhat similar. Like the fact that the Uchiha would still be in charge of the police force. Tobirama was the person who assigned the Uchihas to control the police force. Now this was done both to keep them occupied and because Tobirama thought they would be really good at it. But something that wouldn't have happened is that the Uchihas wouldn't have been moved to the outskirts of the village. Basically every time we see the Uchihas, they're in their own little section of the village. And this was done by Hiruzen. Well, more specifically Danzo. They were moved because they were suspected to be the people behind Kurama being unleashed. But the thing is, if Fugaku Uchiha was elected as the 4th Hokage, the unleashing of Kurama would have been drastically different. It still would have happened, mind you, just because Fugaku's elected doesn't mean Obito's not going to do his own stuff away from the village. But essentially, one of the biggest mistakes made on the night of Kurama's unleashing is the fact that Danzo and the 2 other village elders told Hiruzen to not let the Uchihas near Kurama.
Yeah, that was
Danzo
fucking stupid. That was dumb.
specifically told Hiruzen to make the Uchihas walk.
And I get it. The reason why he did that is because, you know, you're taking a big chance. Like, you're trusting in the Uchiha, which were rivals and enemies in past history and war, you know. But you're taking a chance with people that could have the ability to control the Nine Tails. So even if they were to calm and control the Nine Tails and stop the attack, what's to say they wouldn't start using it against the Hidden Leaf and exploit that? You know what I mean? So I get why, and it's a logical decision, but at the end of the fucking day, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's like, come on, bro. You know, like, so, I don't know. I feel like they should have let the Uchiha help, and if they did, Fugaku would have been able to suppress some of his Mangekyo and take care of the Nine Tails. Definitely by far, you know?
Of the village.
Or just anyone that has, you know, the Sharingan eyes and can just do it, you know? Fucking, you know, that's Uchiha for you.
AKA keep them far away from the battle because we don't know whether or not they're in charge of Kurama and if they were the people who released him. Specifically, they were curious about Fugaku, whose MS was so strong people theorized it would be able to control something like Kurama. And the president is there considering
well, not even that, like, just a normal Sharingan, he would probably be able to control it because Obito was able to, Madara was able to, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's not really, like, required or necessary to, like, that you have to have an MS in order to do it. You know what I mean? So
another MS wielder had used Kurama to fight Hashirama like 50 years ago.
Or
But if
Shisui.
Fugaku was the Hokage, A, he wouldn't have been with Kushina on the night of the attack, because obviously Minato would be with Kushina, and B, Hiruzen wouldn't have been in charge of the village. Because the only reason that Hiruzen was in a position to make choices for the village is because Minato was away. So Hiruzen became like pseudo Hokage. But Fugaku would have been in the office, and therefore Fugaku would have been like, no, I'm not doing this. Obviously, I'm right here. We're sending the Uchiha in to suppress the Nine Tails. And more likely than not, Fugaku would have gone himself. Obviously, Danzo and the village elders would have been upset about this, but that's the Hokage. He can do what he wants.
Yeah.
So the true difference in this night would have came in the fact that Minato would be fighting against Obito. That hasn't changed. But after Minato defeats Obito, he wouldn't have to go fight Kurama, because Fugaku and his Wicked Eye Sharingan and the rest of the Uchiha would be countering the Genjutsu placed on Kurama. In fact, it's not wild to assume that they would A, be able to undo the Genjutsu on Kurama, but B, place him under a new separate Genjutsu. Obviously, Obito's Genjutsu was almost Kotoa Matsukame level. But here's the thing about both Obito's Genjutsu and Kotoa Matsukame. Both can be broken out of relatively easily. As long as you see somebody is under that Genjutsu, either Koto or Obito's, you can break them out of it just like you would any other Genjutsu. We've seen this on both Yagura and Mifune. Then any other Uchiha with a Genjutsu specialization could have put Kurama under a Genjutsu. And while Kurama was pacified, they could have resealed Kurama into Kushina. And I know what you're saying.
Here we go. When you smoke cigarettes, addiction is lurking.
Hey, it's your dry skin. Help me stay hydrated and healthy looking all day with CeraVe facial moisturizing lotions.
Fantastic, thank you.
Saying,
Well, Nick, if they reseal Kurama into Kushina, well, Naruto doesn't get Kurama.
and you're right, resealing Kurama into Kushina is by far the most logical thing to do in this scenario. A, she's a full-blooded Uzumaki. B, she was picked specifically to be Kurama's Jinchuriki, and see if you do not reseal Kurama into her, she dies. So now, not only has Kushina's life been saved by resealing all of Kurama into her, Minato is still alive, because Minato didn't need to use Reaper Death Seal. See, in the moment, the only thing that Minato could do in order to seal Kurama was a Hail Mary. But if Minato had had the support of the Uchihas, and specifically Fugaku in his fight against Kurama, he very easily could have just sealed Kurama in the way they've been sealing Kurama for decades. And the thing is, Minato knows the 8 trigram seal. Kushina taught it to him. So he could have just redone Kushina's 8 trigram seal on her belly, and then we're all good. But we're already way off course of the Naruto story. Naruto's not a Jinchuriki, and both parents are alive. Hell, technically the only people who have died would be a fair amount of just kind of NPC villagers, but that's it. And even the amount of villagers that would have died would be significantly less than in the true Naruto storyline, because Kurama would be dealt with way quicker. So if the Uchihas are allowed to help in the battle against Kurama, and they have an Uchiha in office, there would be significantly less Uchiha unrest. Here's the thing, I'm not going to talk about this storyline like all the Uchiha unrest would be gone, because it wouldn't be. Fugaku was widely beloved in the Uchiha clan, but the Uchiha unrest has been going since the formation of Konoha. Essentially, Madara was afraid that the Uchihas would slowly be suppressed within Konoha. And while in the beginning, everybody didn't agree with this take and essentially kicked Madara out, slowly but surely they realized it was happening to them. So all throughout the duration of the first, second, and third Hokage-doms, I guess, there was Uchiha unrest growing. Just getting a couple of things to go your way isn't gonna quell all of that. That being said, the coup would be on indefinite hiatus, which would mean that there would be no Uchiha massacre yet. And if there's less growing unrest in the Uchiha clan, that means more likely than not, Itachi wouldn't be distanced from the Uchiha clan. You see, Itachi was brought to a third Great Shinobi World War battlefield when he was 4 years old by Fugaku, and he was 6 when Kurama attacked. I'll explain why this is important. Essentially, that means there's 2 years or less between the end of the Third Great Shinobi World War and Kurama attacking, which is why we know Minato served for 1 to 2 years. This is important in terms of the scope of Itachi, because essentially the Uchiha unrest would start to settle when he was 4 or 5, because that's when Fugaku would be elected as the 4th Great Hokage. So Itachi, a pacifist since the moment his father brought him to a battlefield of the Third Great Shinobi World War littered with dead bodies, wouldn't see the Uchihas ramping up for violence, which wouldn't push him out and separate him from the Uchiha clan like we see in the main Naruto storyline. But it wouldn't change the fact that Itachi would be incredibly talented, and the same thing for Shisui, because Shisui was also a spy for Danzo. In fact, Shisui was kind of the person who inspired Itachi to be a spy for Danzo for Konoha. So Shisui and Itachi would still enter the Anbu and even possibly the Root. More likely than not, Danzo would be recruiting them, A, to be spies on the Uchiha clan that he still doesn't trust even though Fugaku is technically his boss, and B, because they're incredibly talented. And that brings us to talking about somebody who is not going to change at all if Fugaku is the Hokage, Danzo. You see, the Uchiha massacre is basically formulated.
I would even say Orochimaru too.
By Danzo. He's the reason it happens. Danzo essentially used Kurama being unleashed on Konoha as a trigger to launch the Uchiha massacre. See, Danzo always wanted the Sharingan. He wanted to use it to increase his power and also to do research on it. But he also understood that the Uchiha as a clan were very powerful and therefore posed a threat to the Konoha hierarchy. Danzo knew if the Uchiha clan got together and fought against the hierarchy of Konoha, it would be a very bloody and very difficult battle for both sides. So he wanted them gone. But the problem is that the Uchiha...
One moment, guys. Alrighty, I'm back. Sorry. Let's get to it.
Uchiha unrest that he was stoking in order to get them to plan a coup is now tied down. And I know what you're saying,
Well, Nick, Fugaku probably wouldn't support the route.
Fugaku would probably understand that Danzo was trying to axe his clan and basically cut all funding to it. But here's the thing. The root has never needed Konoha. In fact, after the Uchiha massacre, when Hiruzen figures out it was Danzo who was the one who caused it, he tells Danzo, the root's over. You can't do this anymore. And Danzo's like,
Oh no, whatever will I do?
and then just turns around and goes back to the root, because root shinobi report to Danzo, not the Hokage. So without the leverage to use Kurama being unleashed to stoke unrest, Danzo would need a new way to kill off the Uchihas. And here's the thing, remember how I said Uchiha unrest existed before Fugaku became Hokage? Well, that plays an important role for the role of Shisui. And there's a couple of people instrumental in causing the Uchiha downfall, and it's the same people who are instrumental in the original storyline. See, Shisui would have been old enough to see the Uchiha unrest before Fugaku became Hokage. So when you combine the fact that he was both incredibly talented and opposed to the coup, that's why Danzo recruited him. So even in the timeline where Fugaku is now the Hokage, Danzo and Shisui have a working relationship. A working relationship that would also most likely tie Itachi in, because Itachi and Shisui are best friends. So even in the Fugaku timeline, Itachi and Shisui more likely than not would be working for Danzo as spies. So now since Danzo's hand is forced to restoke the flames of conflict between the Uchihas and Konoha, he has to spread a rumor. Kind of like how he spread the rumor that Naruto was the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails after it was released in order to stoke all of Konoha's hatred towards one thing and bring them back together through hatred. Essentially, Danzo would start passing around the lie that Fugaku and all of the Uchiha unleashed Kurama in order to make themselves look like the heroes as they suppressed it. Essentially, Danzo would be passing information throughout all of Konoha stating that the Uchihas are trying to solidify themselves as the ruling class because they're the only people who can deal with these big, bad, scary things. And the thing is, this wouldn't be a hard rumor to pass, considering the fact that the village elders were almost immediately able to deduce the fact that Kurama was being controlled by an Uchiha. I mean, Kurama's eyes are quite literally in the shape of a Sharingan when he's attacking the village. If this rumor was spread successfully, it would not only alienate the Uchiha, but also maybe dethrone Fugaku, allowing Danzo himself to take over. And because this rumor is so believable, it actually
I wouldn't say Danzo would take over. They would just give it to the fourth Hokage, Minato.
Takes hold of the village and begins to spread like wildfire. People begin to actually rally against Fugaku and the Uchiha clan. But there's one person who can clear Fugaku and the Uchiha's names. And that person is Minato. You see, Minato had fought Obito, somebody who had clearly stated that they were the ones responsible for releasing Kurama.
I was about to state that too, because since Minato was dead, that was the only reason why they weren't able to prove whether if it was the Uchiha or not, and how things kept developing and getting worse and worse. So that's a get out of jail free card right there.
A significant hurt on Obito. A hurt so significant that Obito wasn't going to go off and be able to re-suppress Kurama. So
now thinking about it though, like, I believe like Obito would have got killed too. Because the whole reason why Obito was able to get away and survive was because he had to deal with the Nine Tails. You know what I mean? But since he didn't have to deal with the Nine Tails, you know, because the Uchiha, you know what I mean, they're controlling it and then they work together and seal it, he could just teleport to Obito whenever he wants and just kill him. I just thought of that. So would Obito be dead in this story? Like, what if? Or would he still be alive? You know, like, what happens, you know?
Obito takes a public stance defending Fugaku, stating, I can clear his name. There's no way the person I fought would be able to go back and reseal Kurama. In fact, he goes so far as to state that without Fugaku, both him and Kushina, and maybe even possibly their newborn son Naruto, would have died. Without Fugaku's Genjutsu, Minato would have had to fight Kurama alone. And just like that, a person who could be elected as Hokage, a hero of a great war, is backing up the Hokage and his clan. And once again, Danzo is foiled. But there's a problem with Danzo's rumor outside of the fact that Minato is able to overturn it. There's the fact that both Shisui and Itachi know Danzo very well. They've worked for him for years. And they understand that in the absence of conflict, Danzo is trying to stir up more. And Shisui specifically realizes that Danzo is now the driving force behind the coup. So Shisui goes so far as to use his Kodo Amatsu Kame on Danzo to erase all want of the Uchiha massacre to happen.
Okay. That's a big deal though. Oh my god, these fucking ads.
Just want to like sleep for 36 hours, like 3 days straight.
I'd love to sleep.
Shisui rewrites Danzo's personality to just liking the Uchiha. There's a problem. It's the fact that Danzo and all of his root members have a seal on them. A seal that doesn't allow them to be put under Genjutsu. And as soon as Danzo is put in Koto Amatsukame, as soon as Shisui begins to walk through his brain, rewriting the story, Danzo pulls out a kunai and commits seppuku. See, we know for a fact that Danzo does this to the members of the root because Mukai Kohinata in Itachi's light novel, when he's hit by Shisui's Genjutsu, does this exact thing to himself. Now, it's not a stretch to assume that
See, this is the only problem with this though is I don't think Shisui would go as far as to use Koto Matsukami. You know what I mean? Like, because the only reason why Shisui was even gonna do that on the Uchiha was because no matter what, no matter what words, they tried everything. Nothing was working. So you know what I mean? And that's why. With Danzo, he could still be able to, like, you know, either talk with Fugaku, the HOKAGE. He could be able to talk with Hiruzen, you know, or may still talk with Danzo, you know what I mean? Like, shit can still be able to get resolved, you know, without having to resort to Koto Matsukami. And either Danzo would just get arrested, and that's it, or it would go the Koto Matsukami route, I guess, whatever. But, you know, I feel like it can go either or. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say it's absolutely certain that Shishui's going to do it on Danzo, you know, but whatever. But yeah, if that does happen, then yeah, he's dead then.
Danzo wouldn't put this own seal on himself. Danzo loves his life. Why would he risk the chance of slicing himself open? But at the same time, if you think that, you're also discounting Danzo's blind allegiance to Konoha. If you'll remember, Danzo isn't a bad guy in his own eyes. He just does whatever he finds necessary for Konoha's betterment. Danzo knows more about Konoha than quite literally anybody else outside of maybe the Hokage, and even then, he might know more. Should he be put under Genjutsu and have that information extracted from him, that would be detrimental to the leaf in his eyes.
True.
So should a hyper-powerful Genjutsu like Koto Amatsukame be used on him, I believe a seal of some sort would activate, and he would die for Konoha. As for whether or not Shisui would use Koto Matsukame on Danzo, I don't even think that's a question. I mean, Shisui's original plan to stop the coup was to use Koto Matsukame on Fugaku.
No, it is a question because once again, you know, Shisui only did that because he was absolutely forced to. So even if he didn't know Danzo was stirring up the pot or trying to cause problems and tension between the village and the Uchiha, he has other methods to go about it first. You know what I mean? And if those methods don't work, then sure, but they could work because, once again, Fugaku is the Hokage. Not Hiruzen, Fugaku, you know? So he could just get arrested and just be put in jail. That's it.
Just him switching sides, essentially. And given the circumstance, I believe it would be very rational for him to switch sides. But with Danzo gone now, that means no Uchiha massacre and no Itachi to the Akatsuki. But Shisui did just technically murder a village elder, something he feels conflicted and bad about because he wasn't trying to kill Danzo, he was trying to rewrite his personality. So in his confliction, he goes to talk to Fugaku to either turn himself in or just get some kind of pat on the back. He doesn't know, essentially his handler for the entirety of his life in Danzo is dead now. So when Shisui arrives at wherever Fugaku is, let's say his house with Itachi and Sasuke, he informs Fugaku of what's happened. Fugaku is surprised, and Itachi, who is listening to the meeting, is also surprised. Fugaku states it's essentially going to be hard to cover up the death of a village elder. And because you're an Uchiha, people are going to use that to vilify the entirety of Uchihas. And if I, as an Uchiha Hokage, defend you, a fellow Uchiha, in the murdering of somebody who's been defending the leaf for generations and was ardent about the Uchihas being dangerous, well, essentially, Danzo will win. In death, Danzo will have achieved exactly what he was looking for. So he tells Shisui, what we have to do is you have to become a missing nin. You gotta scrape a scratch through your headband. Shisui would essentially have to take Itachi's spot in the Akatsuki. And I know what you're saying. Once again, you're saying,
Nick, how would they know about the Akatsuki? Obito wasn't there to be involved in the Uchiha massacre with Itachi, so Itachi wouldn't be able to relay about this organization to Hiruzen.
The thing is, you're forgetting the fact that Jiraiya has been investigating the Akatsuki this entire time and relaying that information to the Hokage's office. So to assume that that information had been relayed to Fugaku at one point or another is not insane. So Fugaku grasps this opportunity and says, yes, you have to become a missing nin, and I understand what you did and I appreciate what you did, but I need you to become a spy in this organization called the Akatsuki. But why is Fugaku so wary of the Akatsuki? Right now, they're just a group of rogue ninja. Well, Fugaku and all of the Uchiha better than anybody understand that Kurama was under the genjutsu of a Sharingan. They were, after all, the ones who had to fight him and break him out of it. They know at this point a member of the Akatsuki has the Rinnegan, because obviously Jiraiya knew who Nagato was. There was also the information that Minato would have been able to pass along that the person he fought he suspected to have a Sharingan. So with these couple pieces of information cobbled together, Fugaku would be able to reason that the Akatsuki might be behind some of these hijinks. But regardless,
Made my
Of course I
anxiety
can.
worse.
I don't know why, but I've not been able to skip one goddamn ad in this shit, and it's
The
fucking
Gillette
driving
Labs
me
with
nuts.
exfoliating bar
My God.
clears the way for an effortless shave.
Like, I normally am always able to skip them.
regardless of what Fugaku was off on it for a second. For the moment, we would essentially have Naruto being raised by both of his parents. And since Minato defended Fugaku so ardently, Minato and Fugaku would most likely be pretty close friends. And because Minato and Fugaku were close friends, Naruto and Sasuke would be raised in close proximity to each other. They would more likely than not become best friends.
Yeah.
Not in the way that they're best friends in Naruto. Like, they would actually be like good friends. They would be like Choji and Shikamaru. And since Minato isn't the Hokage, he wouldn't have like a crazy amount of things to do. I mean, he would have missions occasionally, but he would be able to spend a good amount of time with Naruto and Kushina.
And that would lead to like nurturing Naruto, his training, supervision, etc. So Naruto would be getting pretty strong.
He would be able to train Naruto, which would mean that at a relatively young age, Naruto would probably have mastered the Rasengan. And at a relatively little bit older age, he might have even mastered Flying Raijin. Because if you think about it, in both of their base forms, Naruto has significantly more chakra than Minato. And he was able to learn the Rasengan in what? A week? He wasn't even learning from the guy who created it. The same could be said for Sasuke, who would be able to be trained by Itachi. Obviously, Itachi would have a bunch of Anbu missions to go on and all of that, but also he would have Fugaku. And even if Itachi and Fugaku were both busy, he would also be surrounded by other Uchiha who could teach him how to use his Sharingan. But here's the thing. Because he didn't watch Itachi kill his entire family, he technically wouldn't have his Sharingan as early as he did. No, instead, Sasuke would most likely awaken his Sharingan during the Land of Waves mission. This is assuming that Team 7 would be the same Team 7 if Fugaku became the Hokage. Which isn't insane, but it's also not that likely considering the fact that they combined Sasuke and Naruto because they had the highest and the lowest scores, and Naruto would have much higher scores if he had both of his parents. But for the sake of not complicating the story, let's just say they're on the same team. And then after the Konoha Crush arc, we obviously have the Chunin exams. You see, nothing would really change about the Chunin exams except for the fact that Orochimaru wouldn't really be there. You see, if all of the Uchiha are still alive and Itachi is still in the village, then he wouldn't be focusing on Sasuke. Orochimaru would have a plethora of easier Uchiha to pick off. So more likely than not, Sasuke would never get a curse mark. But outside of Orochimaru not giving Sasuke a hickey, the majority of the Chunin exams would go exactly the same as they did. Sasuke would still be able to use Chidori, and Naruto wouldn't have Kurama's chakra to bail him out of a lot of situations, but he would also be technically much more advanced in his ninjutsu career. And even though he wouldn't have Kurama's chakra to tap into, he still has an insane amount without Kurama. Maybe a couple of fights go a little bit different now that there's more Uchihas around or something like that. But at the core fundament, the Konoha Crush arc still happens. But there's a couple of major differences in the Konoha Crush arc. The first being that technically Konoha has much more in terms of firepower to fight the Konoha Crush now. You know, Might Guy and Kakashi still go wash a bunch of sand ninja, but more importantly, Hiruzen doesn't have to fight Orochimaru alone. Maybe Fugaku was off somewhere trying to fight Manda, but in my headcanon, Minato would be able to help Hiruzen with the fight against Orochimaru. If there is anybody who can beat that barrier going up, it's Minato, especially when you consider the fact that if Minato had a marking on either Hiruzen, that roof, or Orochimaru, he could just jump beyond the barrier. So the fight would be Orochimaru versus Hiruzen and Minato. And I know what you're saying,
Well, then Orochimaru's getting absolutely washed.
and that would probably be true in a lot of situations. But if you remember anything about that fight, you remember the fact that he summoned both Tobirama and Hashirama. And while Hiruzen was able to hang with all three of them by himself, he was by no means winning. And while Hiruzen technically knows every jutsu of the leaf outside of Flying Raijin, he had no better way to seal Hashirama and Tobirama without using Reaper Death Seal. He didn't have Gaara's Sand, he didn't have Sai's Leaping Tiger Seal. He had one Fuin jutsu strong enough to seal Edo Tensai Kages, and that was Reaper Death Seal. So the way that I see this fight going is that Orochimaru summons Tobirama and Hashirama immediately. And obviously there's no third casket to rise because Minato's right over there. And Hiruzen decides to take on Hashirama and Tobirama, while Minato takes on Orochimaru. Obviously, Minato absolutely washes Orochimaru.
Yeah.
Hiruzen and Minato have no better way to seal Hashirama and Tobirama other than using Reaper Death Seal. They don't know that the only way that those two get erased is if Orochimaru releases them. They could kill Orochimaru and Hashirama and Tobirama would just still be there. And since they have tags in their heads, they would still be being controlled by Orochimaru. So Hiruzen still has to use Reaper Death Seal. But this time he only uses it on Tobirama and Hashirama. Hiruzen is able to complete Reaper Death Seal on both of them, and they all die, and so does Orochimaru, sort of. See, obviously Minato wins in a fight against Orochimaru if somebody else is dealing with the Edo Tensei, and Minato has no reservations against killing, so he kills Orochimaru. Problem is, Orochimaru's already figured out the curse mark, and he has that curse mark on Anko. Kabuto finds out that Orochimaru has died and goes to Anko and pulls Orochimaru's chakra and DNA out of her and puts him into a new vessel. But this vessel doesn't agree with Orochimaru. So Orochimaru is in the same situation he was after Hiruzen's fight, in that he's not as strong and he can't use hand seals and all these kinds of ninjutsus in this timeline as he is in the original. So Orochimaru, whose vessel is rejecting him and it's causing him massive health issues, needs Tsunade. Nobody else can deal with him medically, so he has to go to the greatest healer on Earth. But here's the thing about the Tsunade retrieval arc. Technically, it wouldn't happen in this timeline. Minato's still alive. Yes, Hiruzen's dead, but he wasn't Hokage, and most importantly, the current Kage, Fugaku, still alive. So the village has no real reason to look for Tsunade. Problem is, Orochimaru does. So Orochimaru finds Tsunade. And since she's still in the midst of her gambling and drinking saga with nobody to pull her out of it, the promise of bringing back both Dan and her little brother gets her to heal Orochimaru. There's no Naruto or Jiraiya there fighting for her honor and trying to get her to not heal Orochimaru. She was in the lowest of her lows at this time in her life, and the promise of seeing her loved ones again got her to heal Orochimaru. But after she heals Orochimaru and Orochimaru is gone, she hears about what Orochimaru did to the Hidden Leaf. Racked with guilt, she returns to the Hidden Leaf to heal those injured by Orochimaru in the Konoha Crush arc. So she's back in the leaf, not as Hokage.
I don't think she would really give a fuck, though, to be honest. Like, I don't think that's too far stretched, but...
Her to lead the hospital, essentially doing very important surgeries and just running.
So that's the only thing I'll kind of disagree with. I don't know, man, because, like, Tsunade at that point, she was in, like, such a bad, deep depression where she didn't give a fuck about anything, you know what I mean? Like, she didn't really... I feel like she didn't get her will of fire back or the drive to help Konoha again or to be there with them and everything until Naruto, because Naruto really made a big impact on her mental health and all that stuff and everything. So I don't know. I think, like, even if she did find out, she'd just be like, oh, well, my bad, whatever, and that's it. I don't really think she would have gotten back. That I do disagree with. But, you know, whatever. You know, if he's gonna make a part of the story, that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, I don't see why. You know what I mean? Like I said, it took with Jiraiya's reunion, then with Naruto, then him mastering the Rasengan, then the whole thing with Kabuto and all that, and the fight and everything, you know, took all of that to kind of get her back on track, you know, so just saying, could it happen in another way or whatever? Sure, maybe, but I don't know. She was really gone, bro.
Today, kind of like Sakura and Boruto. But we're not quite done with Orochimaru yet. You see, in the main storyline of Naruto, there was one plot point that never made a whole lot of sense to me. Orochimaru finds a child throughout his adventures, a child named Shin. Orochimaru finds out that this child, Shin, can have any foreign DNA grafted onto him, like Hashirama's cell.
I totally forgot. He forgot about Kimamaru. Oh no, Kimamaru was sick. Never mind. Yeah.
Sharingans, all these kinds of things. And in fact, actually, Danzo's right arm is made from Shin's DNA, which is why Danzo was able to graft so many Sharingan in there. And for as long as we've known Danzo, his hand has been wrapped up, which means that from the beginning of Naruto, Orochimaru was either in contact with or had Shin living with him. In this new kind of emergency release vessel that's rejecting him, Orochimaru knows there's a timeline, a certain amount of time that Orochimaru could spend in this vessel.
Mind my
it's
ramen
not
noodles.
an eternity thing, and we know he's looking for eternity. So the idea as to why he never took over Shin's body, who he had already slapped a bunch of Sharingan into, you see, that just never made sense to me. Not to mention the
Tell me.
the fact that in Shin's body, he would be able to put other people's hearts, lungs, livers inside of him like Kakuzo, essentially achieving immortality immediately.
Did he just say Kakuzo or Kakazu?
And also, you know, the Hashirama cell. So in my timeline, he takes over Shin. He does this not only to achieve some sense of immortality, but also to be—
I don't remember any of that. If I'm being real with you guys, I don't remember shit when it comes to Shin. I don't know who the fuck Shin is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, but okay, we're rocking with Shin.
Become strong enough to defeat Minato. I mean, we all remember how angry he was about Hiruzen taking his arms. Minato killed him. I think a grudge like that would run pretty deep with Orochimaru. And just like how there's no Tsunade retrieval arc, there's also no Sasuke retrieval arc. Sasuke's happy. He's living in the village with his father, his mother, his brother's best friend. He's on a team with his best friend and maybe possibly a future lover, because he wouldn't be such a shitty angst lord in my timeline. And just like that, we're ready for Shippuden. You see, there's nothing really stopping Shippuden from starting the same way. Orochimaru can still form Hebi or Taka. It would just be Jugo, Swagitsu, Karin, and I don't know, maybe another Uchiha. But also, like how we talked about earlier, essentially the formation of the Akatsuki wouldn't change at all. All members of the Akatsuki wouldn't be influenced by a different Hokage, outside of Sasori. Now, obviously, there will be minor changes all throughout Shippuden, and Shippuden is 500 episodes and most of its filler, so I'm not going to talk about each minute difference. I'm mostly going to be focusing on individual characters here, specifically the Akatsuki. I understand that not all of Shippuden is the Akatsuki. There's some Naruto chasing Sasuke in there, there's some Naruto training in there, there's some introduction of Sai in there, but I'm gonna be focusing on the Akatsuki because, let's be real, they're the most compelling part of Shippuden. Essentially, I'm gonna go in order of the Akatsuki's deaths.
He's not wrong.
So Sakura versus Sasori still happens. No reason for it not to. Essentially, during the time skip, not a lot would change. Sasuke might train with Kakashi, but he technically wouldn't need to, because the only reason he trained with Kakashi was because Kakashi was the only person with a Sharingan.
Yeah.
Sasuke could join the Anbu, or train with Itachi, or train with Fugaku, or Shisui.
It wouldn't be Shisui, that'd be weird. But it would be either with Itachi or the Anbu, you know what I mean, whatever, and that'll be that. Or just Kakashi.
Regardless, for those 3 years, he would be strengthening his Sharingan ability and his lightning release. Basically, nothing at all changes for Naruto except for the person who would be training him. Instead of Jiraiya training him, Minato would train him, even in Sage mode, because Minato is a perfect Sage. So Minato, more likely than not, would take Naruto to Mount Mulabuko, where he would train in Sage mode, and he would master things like the Rasengan and even possibly Flying Raijin. Naruto would essentially, in this timeline, just become Minato with more chakra. But I might be rushing on the Sage mode thing here, considering that Naruto doesn't learn Sage mode in the original timeline until the Pain arc. But if we're being real with ourselves, in my timeline, Naruto would be a much more talented ninja earlier on.
Exactly.
So he might be ready.
And
for
then not
Sage.
only that, guys, I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but in the Infinite Tsukiyomi filler arc, they actually did a hypothetical what if. Like, what if Minato was still alive and blah, blah, and how things would kind of go. And, you know, a lot of things were the same for the most part, but Naruto, you know, he's way more talented. He's way more, you know, it's very supportive that that's kind of what would have been the case. So definitely would have to agree with that. Absolutely. And he also masters Sage mode. And this is during while Sasuke had the curse mark. You know what I mean? And all that. So
mode in the time skip. That's roughly the age that Jiraiya learned it. The next big event is Asuma's death, and that still happens in my timeline as well. Fugaku being Hokage isn't gonna break up Inoshika-cho, and Asuma still would have been a member of the 12 Guardians, so Kakuzo would still be looking for him. So the first half of that fight would go exactly the same. Kakuzo and Hidan would come up against Inoshika-cho, and Asuma would die. But the second half would go different, for me at least. Essentially, Inoshika-cho gets reloaded for a part 2 of this battle, with Kakashi and Naruto by their sides. Oh yeah, also Yamato goes with them. So in my version of this story, I wouldn't send Kakashi or Yamato. Obviously, both Kakashi and Yamato are very, very powerful ninja. But instead of Kakashi, I would send Itachi. Considering the fact that they know both Hidan and Kakuzo's movesets, Itachi makes more sense than Kakashi to go. His ability to use very effective genjutsu gives him a significant leg up on both Hidan and Kakuzo. The only problem is, in this timeline, technically Itachi wouldn't have MS. He never would have had to finish off Shisui, so he never would have awoken it. The same could be said for Sasuke. The only reason Sasuke didn't go on that mission is because Sasuke was no longer part of Team 7, but in my universe, he is. So it's Inoshika-cho, Itachi, Sasuke, and Naruto. And just like in the regular universe, they dog walk him. Now, Deidara loses to Shisui in my universe. universe. You see, the reason that Datara joins the Akatsuki in the regular universe is because he loses a battle to Itachi. So I'm kind of using Shisui and Itachi interchangeably here, because if Datara loses to Shisui and has to join the Akatsuki, he would have all of the same motivations as if when he lost to Itachi. He would still hate the Uchihas, he would still train his eye against Genjutsu, and he would still hate Orochimaru because Orochimaru leaving was the reason that there was an open spot in the Akatsuki, which is why he got dragged in. So Datara hears through information channels that Orochimaru attacked the Leaf, and he hears that in this battle, Orochimaru was killed. He then hears that Orochimaru is actually back alive because of a Leaf medical ninja. The reason that Datara gets into a fight with Sasuke, the one that eventually kills him, is because Sasuke was the person who killed Orochimaru. Datara wanted to be the person who killed Orochimaru. So Datara would be A, furious with Minato who killed Orochimaru, and B, furious with Tsunade who brought him back to life. Just because he wanted to be the one who killed Orochimaru doesn't mean he wants him back from the dead. So Datara would now have 2 reasons to fly to Konoha. 1, to fight Minato, and 2, to fight Tsunade. I've been filming for 2 hours and he's had enough. He's had enough. He needs to be reminded who the unified
this man with his goddamn dog
rope tugs is. He just brings the rope to me. It's this easy. That's an 80-pound pit bull, baby. But before he can make it into the village to fight either Minato or Tsunade, Sasuke intercepts him, and they have a very similar fight to what they do in the main storyline, and eventually Datara dies. Now, the true differentiator between my universe and the original timeline is Shisui. See, Shisui being a spy in the Akatsuki actually means a lot more than Itachi being a spy in the Akatsuki, because Shisui has an ability, if used correctly, that could quite literally disintegrate the Akatsuki. Shisui has Kodo Matsukame, and yes, he used it on Danzo, so one of his eyes is still recovering from that. Kodo Matsukame is his ability in both eyes. So now that a couple members of the Akatsuki are dead, Shisui sees this as an opportunity, the opportunity to finally change Nagato, the leader of the Akatsuki. So one day, eventually, Shisui uses Kodo Matsukame on Nagato. He essentially changes Nagato's personality to peace-loving. And not peace-loving in the way of making everybody experience pain and therefore peace is achieved, just regular old peace-loving. Here's the thing, Shisui didn't know who the real leader of the Akatsuki was. He didn't know that Tobi, aka Obito, is the actual leader of the Akatsuki. It was private information. And Obito saw Shisui put Nagato under this Genjutsu and was able to see his disrupted chakra network. Obito, identifying that Shisui is a rat, kills him. And just like that, one more Akatsuki member is wiped off the list. After Obito has killed Shisui, and yes, trust me, Obito would kill Shisui, he breaks Nagato out of the Kodo Matsukame. Nagato, furious that the Leaf would try to silence his mission and change his directive so underhandedly, decides.
Now, one thing I will say on that, I don't really know about the whole Kodo Matsukame. I would have to look back into Naruto Shippuden, whether it's the manga, the anime, or whatever, and kind of analyze all that, because I don't remember how it is. I don't know if it's like if you use Kodo Matsukame that, you know, now you gotta wait a certain amount of use to use it again, you know, but, you know, whatever, and that's just kind of that. So meaning that if he uses Kodo Matsukame with either of his eyes, and now he's kind of like fucked and he can't use his Sharingan or something, I don't know. I don't know if that was just because that was, you know, of someone that's not an Uchiha and using Shisui's eye, and that's why it was like that, or for Shisui, he could just do it as much as he want, which I don't see why he wouldn't be able to, because any Uchiha that has had the Mangekyo Sharingan can do their abilities over and over until their light runs out. So if we're applying the sense of Shisui not being able to use Kodo Matsukame, then yeah, absolutely, I would say Obito fucking wins. But if Shisui still has Kodo Matsukame, along with Susanoo, okay, that's going to be a pretty tough battle. And at the end of the day, I love me some Obito, but he's not winning against Kodo Matsukame. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, but I guess what he's basically going down the route is that if Shisui uses it, then he wouldn't have it anymore, which is fine, whatever. Not really reflecting back, I don't even think HOKAGE really knew of like the actual true, like whether or not if Shisui had it, of what it could do and this and that, yada yada. Like you know, there isn't that much information on a Kodo Matsukame, unfortunately. But you know, I'll just kind of leave it at that. I don't know, but you know, I would have to look back in order to really, really know that. So
to destroy the Leaf Village, but not before. Jiraiya is sent to the Hidden Rain Village to scout out what's going on amongst the Akatsuki, now that they're no longer getting updates from from Shisui. You see, Jiraiya was the reason that Shisui was in the Akatsuki in the first place. Now he was stepping up for the missing Shisui. But obviously Jiraiya wasn't a missing nin, so he had to be a spy. And you can't send a group of people to the Hidden Rain. A, Nagato and Konan are incredible sensory ninjas, and B, the rain acts as a sensor type ninjutsu for Nagato.
And just go the same route.
Unfamiliar chakra signatures would send up red flags. This is why in the original timeline, Jiraiya being sent to the Hidden Rain alone was actually the correct choice. He technically wasn't there to fight Nagato, he was there to collect information. Just like in the original storyline, in my storyline, Jiraiya has to fight Nagato, and it doesn't go well for him.
Well, see, that's a little weird because, like, Sonata was like, no, I don't want you going on your own, it's too dangerous, blah, blah, yada, yada. I'm pretty sure if Minato was still alive, okay, that she would have had Minato go as well. You know what I mean? Like, why not? The more backup, the better. Or have, like, Akashi or, I get it, the whole infiltration, spy mission, you name it. But, like, Minato and him would be just fine. They both technically know Frog, Jutsu, you name it, yada, yada. Like, I don't see why it would have been a problem to at least give one more person to go with him just to be on the safe side. You know what I mean? But it's fine. It's not the end of the world. I'm just saying you could go that route too.
In fact, he dies. And while this upsets Naruto, it upsets Minato more. Minato was Jiraiya.
Hey, it's me, your skin.
You still can't keep. Wow.
Help me maintain my
This video
moisture
said,
balance
nah,
with
you
CeraVe
taking
hydrating
all
cleanser.
the ads, baby.
It is always
Holy
started
fuck.
with the call to serve, fighting and winning for our nation. But Marines are never really finished. They serve in communities across our country. This is Semper Fidelis. Always
Thanks.
faithful, always Marine.
Thank you. Correct.
Jiraiya's student. Jiraiya was one of his best friends on Earth. So when Nagato pulls up to the Hidden Leaf to destroy it, it's not Naruto who takes the center stage. No. It's Minato. But this isn't to say that Naruto's not involved in the fight. No, Minato and Naruto step up to fight Nagato together. Both of them as perfect sages, and both of them using Mount Muabuko Toad summons. They teleport all over the village, overwhelming Nagato's 6 paths of pain. This fight is mostly about Minato versus Nagato, two of Jiraiya's pupils facing off against each other. But eventually Naruto slips up, being less talented than Minato at this time, and he gets injured by one of the 6 paths of pain. And as one of these paths of pain is about to finish off Naruto, because let's not kid ourselves, Nagato basically should have won that fight against Naruto. Without Kurama and also a little bit of plot armor from Minato being implanted inside of the Kurama inside Naruto,
True.
Nagato was going to win that fight. Regardless, as one of these paths of pain is about to shove a rod through Naruto's heart, Minato flashes in front of him and stops the rod with his own body. Minato obviously has a flying Raijin mark on Naruto. It's been there his whole life. Flying Raijin marks never disappear. He put one on him as a baby. With Minato, what looks to be fatally injured, Naruto stands up and begins to rage. But this isn't rage in the way that will bring out Kurama, because Naruto doesn't have Kurama. Naruto collects himself, collects his Sage Chakra, and begins to fight back against Nagato. And he finishes the fight for his father. Tsunade is then rushed to the scene because she's in the village now. The rod is pulled out of Minato and his life is saved. But Naruto still has to go find Nagato. And he does it in the same way that he did it in the original storyline. He uses his Sage Mode sensory, and he talk no jutsu.
And so that's an interesting concept, because it boils down to like Sage Mode Naruto and Sage Mode Minato against fucking Pain. And I'm going to have a whole video on that, of Minato versus Pain and shit, because I was going to do a Minato versus Akatsuki video, and that was going to be him kind of just going 1v1 to all of them, and just very brief and simple, not really too crazy. But, but where it really comes down to it, with Minato and Pain fighting against each other, like, if it's like a full-powered Pain and he's kind of ready to go and shit and you name it, it could be pretty interesting because they both... Pain's going to have obviously way more chakra. It was a monkey, you name it, etc. And, with the Rinnegan Link Vision, yada yada. Yes, Minato does have the Flying Raijin, but then it gets to the point where it's like, do you think that speed would be enough to make the Vision irrelevant? Or would you go along with all the statements and the showings and etc. and everyone basically saying you got to fight them one-on-one? You know what I mean? So, it kind of gets to the point where it's like, who wins it, does it Pain or whatever. But like, I'm gonna be real with you. If it really comes out as of now, and mind you, this is just me as of now. This is not me with doing my research and homework and really being able to really be fair for both characters and provide you guys all the info. But like, for Pain and Minato to go at it, you know, what I will say at the very least is, especially with Naruto being there as well, and with all the frogs and shit and you name it, like, Pain's gonna be able to deal with all the frogs and everything Naruto throws because he did it literally while he was weakened and fatigued. You know what I mean? But you know, so and his only real opponent's gonna be Minato. You know, and with Minato's teleportation, with Sage Mode and everything and all that, like it kind of gets to the point where it's like, you know, I feel like he could be able to take the W. You know, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to. You know, but if you want to give, you know, go along the line of the linked vision, hacks abilities and all that, even by Minato teleporting, as long as one of the passive Pain sees it, you know what I mean, they're going to be able to react and move. But if Minato's like teleporting simultaneously all around, you know what I mean, and they can't even see where he's at, you see where I'm getting at, they could be, they can get into trouble. But all Pain really has to do is the moment Minato teleports, you know, he can just do a fucking Shinra Tensei, you know what I mean, like all around and just kind of. So it's really interesting. It's really fucking interesting, but to kind of just keep it simple and everything, I'd say, you know, I was trying to think too, because there is Chibaka Tensei and all that. But then again, because what's really interesting about that too is there's like this, with the Infinite Tsukiyomi arc, to where this is while Minato's alive and shit, and when Pain pulls up, he doesn't do like a full power Shinra Tensei. He just does a full power chaotic or Chibaku Tensei, and it puts the entire village and everyone in it in the fucking ceiling jutsu, and Minato can't teleport out of it. He can't use Fire and Rising. He cannot get out of it, and it was up to Naruto to be able to beat Pain and stop it, basically. You know, so if I'm being honest, you know, like if Pain kind of pulls up and does the same thing, you know, what the fuck does Minato do? You know what I mean? But if it's just some kind of fighting it out or whatever, then, you know, that's a whole other thing. If Pain just shows up and does the same thing and blows up the whole village, I'm going to be real with you. At that point, Minato's more definitely going to be washing them up, because even with the linked vision, all he has to do is teleport. You know what I mean? Keep teleporting all around to where they can't even see him and they don't know where he's at. And get one of them, just at least one of them, and teleport them away. Have a 1v1 dead, GG, and just keep doing that same strategy. Or, you know, like, if he goes to teleport and attack Tendo Pain, you know what I mean? Even if, they could see it, and yeah, Tendo Pain could probably be able to react and whatever, but, like, you gotta remember, it's still Minato with Sage Mode. And put that on top of, like, Flying Raijin as well. He's not gonna be able to do shit without Shinra Tensei. You know what I mean? So he's gonna get pretty fucked. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was able to tank a full tail beast bomb to the face by 6v2 Six Tails Naruto and, you know, and all that shit, and tank some attacks from Sage Mode Naruto's Taijutsu and all that, but, you know, Sage Mode Rasengan, like, you know what I mean? Like, could Pain be able to tank it? Maybe, but he's more likely getting dropped, you know? So I don't know, like, the way I see it, guys, it can go either way. You know, it really can. Pain is just that guy, and he is very powerful, but it depends on the conditions. You know what I mean? It really does depend on the conditions. You know, if he just comes and goes up there and does a Chibaka Tensei, then they're kind of all fucked. You know what I mean? If he does full power mighty push, you know, then, you know, kind of be the same result, and it'd be down to Minato and Naruto fighting, and, you know, from there, like, Pain loses if he doesn't have access to his Tendo power. If he does have it, then it can kind of go either or, whatever. So, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to get too far into that. You know, that's a whole other fucking can of worms. I'm not really going to do it, but how he's doing it's fine, because it kind of follows the narrative of the writing for what we've seen with Naruto, you know, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. And that's it. But it is amusing and interesting that in this what if story, he's basically like, yeah, Minato just gets beaten because he went to protect Naruto. And I'm gonna be real with you, even if he had to protect Naruto, he could be fast enough to teleport, grab him, and teleport away. You see what I'm saying? Like, so whatever. But it is interesting that he thinks that Pain would just be able to beat him because of Naruto being there, you know? It's interesting.
Sues Nagato into bringing everyone back to life and killing himself. No more Nagato. Kisame versus Guy goes exactly the same way. There's no reason to rewrite that at all. And Konan still dies to Obito. And just like that, we're in the war arc, baby. At this point, Itachi is still alive and actually doing pretty okay because he hasn't awoken his Mangekyo Sharingan, which significantly shortened his life. Obviously, he still has his chakra disease, but without spamming his MS every day to fight Jinchuriki, he got to live a lot longer. However, some of that's about to change because after he finds out about Shisui's death at the hands of Obito, he awakens his MS. Specifically, Obito actually drops Shisui's body in the Uchiha hideout as kind of a I declare war upon you, my old clan move. Upon seeing this, Itachi's MS awakens. After this, the war arc starts. Kabuto still summons Madara and a bunch of other people, but the war arc is gonna go drastically different for a lot of reasons here. One, Fugaku is there and the rest of the Uchiha, which means that all of the tail beasts that are gonna be pulled out of their Jinchuriki, released and used by Obito, could be pacified by groups of Uchiha. This would significantly lighten the load for Kushina and Killer Bee, who are gonna have to be fighting these tail beasts. Because mind you, Kurama is still in Kushina. I mean, technically, Kushina is most likely gonna outlive Naruto and Minato. She's a full-blooded Uzumaki, which means her life force is significantly greater than both of theirs.
You wanna know what's interesting? I don't know if he did go over this, but I don't think he fully went into detail, like, with what happened with Orochimaru, because was it that he said that, like, a Minato just killed him or something like that, right? Which, that's fine, you know what I mean? I think he did. Never mind. Because I'm about to say, because, like, remember, Sasuke was the reason why Orochimaru died. And, well, you know, was absorbed. And then Itachi kind of got rid of Orochimaru. You know what I mean? So, just saying. But Minato, I guess it'd be the same, you know, or dead? I don't know. I don't think he fully, like, specified on that. I think he just said Minato killed him.
Uzumaki lived to about 150, and she was a Jinchuriki till she was, I think, 100.
Damn.
Now, would Kushina be a perfect Jinchuriki? There's no reason for us to think she wouldn't be, but it's fair to say she wouldn't be as strong as Naruto. But before we even get close to that far, there's also the moral conundrum that Madara would have. You see, Madara would have to fight his own clan. And while that's not something that Madara is new to, considering the fact that Madara got thrown out of his clan while Hashirama was Hokage, I think it would make a really interesting writing point. Even after all of these decades, Madara is still the outlier to the Uchiha clan. And it's technically a full circle for the Uchiha clan because the sentiment of the Uchiha being suppressed by Konoha was started by Madara. To see the Uchiha rally against the physical manifestation of that ideal means that they feel accepted within the community. And obviously,
vaping can deliver toxic metals like nickel and lead into your lungs. That's metal in your lungs.
A lot of fucking
Get business
vaping
internet
ads.
from Verizon, the network businesses rely on. Ditch cable and switch to Verizon Business Internet with fast, reliable solutions nationwide. Find the perfect solution for your business from the
Fucking
network
ads.
businesses rely on.
Madara is going to be able to run through the majority of your standard Uchihas. But in my version of the show, we get one of the coolest possible fights ever. Fugaku himself stands up to Madara, leader of the Uchiha to leader of the Uchiha. Mangekyo Sharingan against Mangekyo Sharingan. And in this fight, Fugaku dies. Seeing his father die actually makes Sasuke awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. And while the rest of the Kage pour in to make up for Fugaku's loss and fend off Madara for a second, Sasuke holds his dying father in his arms. At this point that Fugaku tells Sasuke to take his eyes. This is because Fugaku is now looking at Sasuke's now bloody Mangekyo Sharingan eyes. And Fugaku knows that if Sasuke takes his eyes, he'll get EMS. And so Fugaku dies.
You wanna know what would have been really cool if Fugaku was about to fight against Madara, right? You know, Mangekyo, but obviously EMS Mangekyo versus MS Mangekyo, and they're about to go at it, and then Fugaku does his perfect Susanoo, and then Madara does his perfect Susanoo, and they're just going, and then Madara obviously wins, you know, but. You know, that would be really fucking cool to see, to be honest. That would have been pretty badass.
In Sasuke's arms, and then Sasuke takes his eyes, acquiring EMS. While all of this is going on, Itachi is fighting Kabuto. and Itachi blinds one of his eyes like he does in the original storyline to put Kabuto in Izanami.
Oh, but in that fight, Itachi was Edo and also had Sasuke there. How is he gonna win that without that?
We both know that Itachi didn't need Sasuke there. Sasuke basically just stood still. And it wasn't a long enough fight that chakra would have been an issue for Itachi. After Kabuto is put in the loop, the Edo Tensei is released, except for Madara, who just says, no, you. And just like that, he's free. But here's the thing, Itachi's not done. In fact, Itachi didn't even mean to fight Kabuto. Itachi thought that Obito was the one who had summoned all of the Edo Tensei puppets, and therefore had tracked down whoever had summoned them, hoping it would be Obito, and happened to find Kabuto. See, because Itachi wants to find Obito for one reason and one reason alone, to get revenge for Shisui. The problem is, Obito and Kakashi are currently fighting in the Kamui dimension, and their fight goes very similarly. Like, Kakashi puts a big old hole in Obito's chest, and then Obito becomes the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Oh, I forgot to mention, while Kushina was fighting a bunch of the reincarnated Jinchuriki and the other tailed beast, she's fatally wounded, and Minato has to transfer Kurama to Naruto. He doesn't do it to himself because he knows Naruto is 50% Uzumaki and therefore is a better match for Kurama. So by the time the Ten-Tails Obito comes around, Naruto has the entirety of Kurama. So yes, technically Minato does have to kill his own wife by extracting Kurama out of her and putting Kurama into Naruto while she's gravely wounded, and Kushina does die on the battlefield. Hey, at least one parent's gotta die. So now Naruto—
Wait a minute. That's just weird. What? Like, cause bro, like, if you think about it, like, if she, like, you know, has the Nine Tails and all that, even if she got fatally wounded or whatever, the Nine Tails could just heal her or take care of that. I don't understand. Like the only way, like I said, you can really fuck a Jinchuriki is if you extract their tail beast out of them. You know what I mean? And if that didn't happen, then I don't see why he's going this route. That's just me, though. I'm just saying, you know, whatever if he wants to do that, but that's just a little weird, you know? So, I don't know about all that, but okay, you know?
Minato, Sasuke, and Itachi fight Ten-Tails Obito, and they beat him down, kind of like they do in the original storyline, except technically Itachi's not there. Then Maikai and Madara have their fight, Madara regenerates, and Naruto
Wait, what the fuck did he just say?
Putting Kurama into Naruto while she's gravely wounded, and Kushina does die on the battlefield. Hey, at least one parent's gotta die. So now Naruto, Minato, Sasuke, and Itachi fight Ten-Tails Obito, and they beat him down.
Who?
While she's gravely wounded, and Kushina does die on the battlefield. Hey, at least one parent's gotta die. So now Naruto, Minato, Sasuke, and Itachi
Naruto, Minato, Sasuke, and Itachi. Okay. I'm gonna be real with you guys. Could they be able to pull a W? Yes, especially because Itachi is there with his crazy-ass broken Susanoo. But that's gonna be mainly because of Itachi and Minato. You know what I mean? Just saying. And all I'm gonna say is, you know, if they pull up like the Edo HOKAGE did, they're fucking dead. You know what I mean? Like, they're getting speed blitz and they're fucking dead. You know, so what they would have to do is use like shadow clones or whatever and kind of feel him out. You know, and then maybe like, you know, do like a combo attack with Itachi's Totsuka Blade and Minato's Flying Raijin or whatever. But like, you know, just saying, bro, like, fucking, that's a little weird.
Fight Ten-Tails Obito, and they beat him down, kind of like they do in the original storyline, except technically Itachi's not there. Then Maikai and Madara have their fight, Madara regenerates, and Naruto Ninja Jesuses Maikai back to life. Because here's the thing, even though technically the cycle of hate broke after Naruto and Sasuke were born because Minato and Fugaku became friends, that doesn't mean that they still wouldn't be reincarnations of Indra and Ashura. We technically don't know if breaking the cycle of hate breaks the cycle of reincarnation, but even if it does break the cycle of reincarnation, Naruto and Sasuke would have been born before the cycle of hate was broken. So Hagoromo could have actually been like, you guys are my last reincarnation, I'll impart to you the entirety of my being in terms of chakra and dojutsu. And then when Madara becomes Kaguya, they get to seal Kaguya together. And then there's no final valley fight because they're already homies. And that's it. That is the entirety of what I believe the timeline would be if one small thing was changed 20 years before the war arc. Do I think that making Fugaku Uchiha was the right thing to do in the moment in the Naruto timeline? Probably not. But in the grand scope of the timeline, that one small choice could have helped a lot. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think making Fugaku Uchiha would have saved a bunch of people's lives and made Konoha a much better place to live in? Tell me in the comments below.
Alright, so I'll give a like for the video. Very, 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 very fucking interesting video. Like, the takes and turns that he went and everything. It's really, really interesting. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it can go in many, many ways. And it's not really that concrete, you know? And it could just be really interesting on how all that would go, you know? I'm surprised he didn't even make, like, Itachi and Obito fight each other for whatever reason, you know what I mean? I mean, he still made him go after Kabuto, which was a little weird because wasn't it the whole point of Itachi going after Kabuto and only knowing where his location was because he was in Edo? So, you know what I mean? Like, he just knew and had that knowledge. I can't remember the reason how he knew. So, I don't know about all that. But regardless, like, it was interesting how he went about it. You know, instead of it being Naruto, it was like Kushina and Killer Bee, I guess. And they're kind of doing their thing. And, you know, and all that's kind of going on. But Minato would be with her as well. You know, so and then like thinking of Minato fighting against Rinnegan, Obito, and Kushina and Killer Bee, like, you know what I mean, like who kind of takes that and shit and yada yada. Like it's very all interesting, and obviously he didn't go like truly all into detail with it. He kind of just went with the narrative, you know, writing that we already technically had. So he kind of just went that same route, just kind of making tiny little changes, you know. But it's interesting. I feel like when it gets towards the war arc, he could have done a lot better, and that should have still been more elaborated. But obviously, that would have made the video more longer. You know, but it was a good video. It was interesting, and the bottom line is the whole point of What If Takes is for you to kind of make it of your own and how you really truly perceive of it going. So it's fine. I mean, that's kind of his perception of it and how it would go, basically as a domino effect. You name it. That's fine. The way I am personally, though, is if I'm going to do a What If story. If I'm going to try to keep most of the narrative unless it would, for some reason, would change, you know what I mean, because of whatever. And obviously we need evidence to do that. But, you know, I kind of do that, you know, whatever, try to keep up, you know, with the original point of it or the in-character type stuff. And then if it ever gets to the point where it comes to, all right, now what happens since this is this, you know, like, for instance, like, if Itachi's alive and Minato's alive, that's a big fucking deal for the war arc. That's really important. You know, like, could that drastically change the fights with Obito? Could that change with Kabuto? Could that change with Nagato? You know what I mean? Being because he would also be around as well. Like it'd be really freaking interesting. So I feel like the war could be in many amount of ways, and then the whole Sasuke and Naruto and fucking and Itachi and I think he said Minato fighting against, you know, Jubito. I don't really know how I feel about all that because the only reason, like, at first it's mindless Jubito. So if it's mindless Jubito, like, he's kind of just doing his thing on a rampage. You know what I mean? But like if they don't have any fucking clones or anything like that or substitution, they're fucking dead. Like they're getting speed blitz, bro. Like they're done. Like it was repeatedly happening over and over of the speed blitzes. You know, it even happened to Naruto and Sasuke, and where they're about to die, and then Minato in his KCM, you know, form, does teleportation, was able to save them, you know. But overall, and then Tobirama was also pulling some clutch stuff as well. But with the fact with the Hokage not even being there, like, I don't know, bro. Like, I feel like that makes a big, cause I don't think he even mentioned the Hokage even coming back. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, I don't know. It's weird. Like I said, with the whole war arc thing, I feel like that needs to be done tremendously a lot better. I don't know if he just did that because, you know, it was already as a long video as it is, or whatever the case, or he didn't want it to be any more longer. But I feel like that still needed more elaborations. But regardless of that, I'm not going to even get into that all myself, to be honest. I'm not going to go that route or anything. But it was interesting. It was interesting, you know. If I had to give like an answer as of now, like kind of what would have happened, you know what I mean? You got to remember, it's Madara and fucking Obito, you know, fighting against the entire Shinobi Alliance. And, you know, like, fucking, it's going to be really weird to say that they all just do not die, you know, because the four Hokage coming really made a big difference. It really fucking did, bro. You know, so I don't know, man. You know, so it's just weird. Like, Itachi, he is really important, don't get me wrong. But, like, how would that even work? Like, if he uses Izanagi Izanami on Kabuto, he only has one eye now, right? So how does that even affect him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would his reserves of chakra be? He's still sick, right? He still has, like, I don't know. There's just so much of that, bro. It's just weird. Like, you know, like, it's like, does Itachi die during Shippuden still, even if he doesn't have the Mangekyo Sharingan, or does he survive a lot longer because he didn't have, like, I don't fucking know, bro. You know, like, I don't know. There's just a lot within that what if story that's a little weird. So those are my only contentions with it, but overall, it was a good story. It was pretty cool. I liked it. It was nice. For most of it, I did agree, but then there was some parts I was like, whatever, I don't know, or it could go many ways. Or when it got towards, like, the whole Itachi thing and Orochimaru, that was a little weird, and then especially the war arc. But other than that, leave a like, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. It was pretty cool what if story from NCHammer23. Make sure to give him the support that he deserves as well for the content. And let me know what you guys think in the comments down below with anything that was kind of discussed from that. I don't know if you've seen this video yet already, but let me know. Subscribe for more content. Subscribe, guys, to the channel. Peace.